There is a door on Dantooine that no Jedi was ever supposed to open. It isn't guarded by soldiers. It's guarded by something older than the Republic itself, ancient droid sentinels, built by a species that vanished thousands of years before the Jedi Order even existed. And in the year 3960 BBY, 2 Jedi Knights stood in front of that door, fresh off a war they were never supposed to fight, about to make a choice that would end with one of them wearing a mask of iron and a title that still echoes through Star Wars lore today, Darth Revan. What they took from behind that door wasn't a weapon. Not at first. It was a secret. A piece of knowledge the Jedi Order had spent 1,000 years trying to keep buried. And once Revan had it, there was no putting it back. This is the story of what Revan really stole and why it never stopped spreading, even after he was gone. To understand why Revan went looking for secrets in the first place, you have to understand the war that came before. The Mandalorian Wars didn't start as a Jedi conflict. They started as a Republic problem, a series of border raids and conquests by Mandalorian warbands, testing the edges of Republic space. The Jedi Council watched and waited, convinced that the Force hadn't shown them a clear path to act. But a young Jedi Knight named Revan saw something the Council didn't, or refused to. He saw a war that was going to swallow the galaxy, whether the Jedi got involved or not. So Revan did something almost unthinkable for a Jedi. He gathered knights and Padawans who shared his conviction, men and women willing to defy the Council's official neutrality, and he marched them to war under a banner of his own making. His closest friend, a Jedi named Alec, later known as Malak, stood beside him from the very beginning. It worked. The Republic needed heroes, and the Revanshists became exactly that. Revan proved to be a brilliant tactician, somehow always a step ahead of Mandalorian strategy, winning battles that should have been unwinnable. But here's the detail that gets lost in the legend. Revan's brilliance didn't come from nowhere. The deeper the war went, the more Revan started digging into places a Jedi shouldn't dig. Old ruins, dead languages, fragments of cultures that had been wiped from galactic memory for a reason. He was looking for an edge, and he found one. Sometime during the war, Revan and Malak uncovered ancient ruins near the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine, structures belonging to a long-extinct species called the Rakata. These weren't simple ruins. They were guarded, tested, designed to keep out anyone who wasn't supposed to get in. Revan and Malak passed the trials anyway. Standing at the threshold of the inner chamber, Malak hesitated. He understood exactly what they were about to do. If the Jedi Council found out they had entered a sealed Rakatan vault without permission, the consequences wouldn't just be a reprimand. It could mean banishment from the Order entirely. Malak said as much out loud, half hoping Revan would turn back. Revan didn't. Inside, they found something called a star map, a Rakatan device encoded with coordinates pointing toward an ancient and unimaginably powerful space station, a weapon-making machine called the Starforge. This was the first piece of forbidden knowledge Revan ever took for himself, and it should have been the only one. Instead, it became a habit. Revan found a second star map buried deep in the jungles of Kashyyyk, and not long after that, the trail led him somewhere far darker, the dead world of Malachor V and a Sith ruin called the Treyas Academy. Malachor V already had a reputation before Revan ever set foot there. It was a tomb world, soaked in the kind of dark side residue that lingers for centuries. The Treyas Academy, buried beneath its surface, had once been a genuine school of Sith teaching, a place where ancient Dark Lords stored their philosophy, their history, their secrets, recorded the way the Sith always recorded things they didn't want lost, in holocrons, sealed behind doors that only the dark side could open. This is the part of the story most casual fans skip past, and it's the actual heart of what Revan stole. It wasn't just a map to a weapon this time. Inside Treyas, Revan accessed real Sith teachings, recordings of belief systems built entirely around strength, conquest, and the idea that the Jedi's devotion to peace and patience was in itself a kind of weakness. The Jedi Order had spent 1,000 years trying to make sure information like this never resurfaced. Holocrons like the ones in Treyas were considered some of the most dangerous artifacts in the galaxy, precisely because of what they could do to the person who opened them. Revan opened them anyway. And the war made him ready to listen. He'd already watched the Mandalorian conflict grow bloodier than anyone back on Coruscant could imagine. He'd already started believing that strength, not patience, was what actually saved lives. The Sith teachings in Treyas didn't plant that idea in his head. They confirmed something he'd already started to feel. That's what made it so effective. It wasn't seduction. It was validation. By the time the war ended at the brutal final battle on Malachor V itself, a battle that killed thousands of Mandalorians and Republic soldiers alike in a single devastating stroke, Revan and Malak were already changed men. They didn't go home to face the Jedi Council. They took what remained of their fleet and disappeared into the unknown regions, chasing the last of the Mandalorian remnants. And chasing something else too. The source of the dark influence that had been guiding events from the shadows the entire time. What they found out there was the true ancient Sith Empire, older and far more dangerous than anything in the holocrons they'd already read, ruled by an emperor whose name would eventually become legend in his own right. And under his influence, Revan and Malak completed their fall, returning to known space not as Jedi Knights, but as Dark Lords of the Sith, Darth Revan and Darth Malak. Using the location data from the star maps they'd already gathered, they tracked down the Starforge itself, and that's when the stolen Jedi secret became something else entirely. It became an empire. The Starforge let them build fleets at a pace no shipyard in the galaxy could match. Revan took control of it, declared himself Dark Lord, and turned the same tactical brilliance that had won the Mandalorian Wars against the Republic he'd once sworn to protect. The Jedi Civil War that followed was, in a strange way, the price the galaxy paid for one Jedi's curiosity. A war born from secrets that were never meant to leave the ground they were buried in. Here's where most stories about Revan end, with his betrayal by Malak, his capture by the Jedi, his memory wiped clean, and his eventual redemption as he helped bring down the true Sith Emperor once and for all. That's the famous arc, the one that gets called one of the greatest redemption stories in Star Wars lore, and it's a fair label. But the secret itself didn't die with Revan's fall, and it didn't get redeemed along with him. It outlived everyone in this story. Centuries later, an ambitious young Sith named Bane went looking for forgotten history of his own. He found Raven's personal Sith holocron, left behind on the planet once known as Rakata Prime, and inside it, Bane found the same kind of dangerous, forbidden teaching that had once changed Revan from Jedi to Sith. Bane studied it. He built on it. And from what he learned, he created the Rule of Two, the philosophy of exactly one master, one apprentice, constant betrayal, constant strength, the very system that would define the Sith Order for the next 1,000 years, all the way up through Darth Sidious and the fall of the Republic itself. A secret Revan dug out of a dead world, looking for an edge in a war he believed in, ended up reshaping the entire future of the Sith. That's the part of this story worth sitting with. Revan didn't steal a weapon. Weapons get used up. He stole an idea, and ideas don't stay buried. They get found again by someone else in a different ruin on a different world centuries later. The galaxy spent 1,000 years trying to make sure the Treyas Academy's secrets never resurfaced. They resurfaced anyway. They just needed the right person to go looking. If you want to go deeper into the era this story comes from, the Mandalorian Wars, the Jedi Civil War, the entire arc of Revan's fall and redemption, let me know in the comments which part of this you want covered next, because there's a lot more buried in this timeline than one video can hold.